Hello and welcome everyone to my channel Code with Ease by Varsha. So we have been doing this array series since quite some time. When I say array series, I mean the one-dimensional array series. So now we are gradually going to begin with the 2D arrays also, two-dimensional arrays related questions, especially the binary search related questions on 2D arrays. Since we have not done any kind of a primer series or two-dimensional arrays, so the approach would be, so how we are going to do it, we are going to start off with some very basic 2D array related questions to have a good grasp on this data structure, how the 2D arrays work, especially the traversal part of it. And once we are having a good foundation or by doing some easy level questions is when we are going to slowly start doing the matrix related questions in which binary search concepts can be applied and other algorithms also. So as part of the 2D array series, we have selected this question which is called the richest customer wealth. So this is a very simple question. In this we are anyway going to play around with 2D arrays. How do we write the for loops? How do we traverse through the 2D arrays? How do we get values out of it? So I think this is going to help in building a good foundation over 2D arrays. So let's look at the question now. We are given a m cross n integer grid which is called accounts, where accounts of I and j is the amount of money the ith customer has in the jth bank. So if I, j, m, and all of these seems confusing to you right now, don't worry, we are anyway going to do a whiteboarding to understand what everything means. Then they're saying to return the wealth that the richest customer has. Customer's wealth is the amount of money they have it in all their bank accounts. And the richest customer is the customer that has the maximum wealth. Okay, so if we take a look at this example that we have here, this is the accounts 2D array that we have. 1, 2, 3 is one array and 3, 2, 1 is another array. Output is 6. So every array that we are seeing, every one-dimensional array which is in there, basically 2D array is basically lot of 1D arrays stacked together. So in this, they're saying the first customer is having this much wealth. So they're adding up all the elements in this first 1D array. Then the second customer, these are basically the bank accounts. So bank account 1 has wealth 1. Then bank account 2 has wealth of 2 units. Bank account 3 has wealth of 3 units. So number of customers is equal to the number of rows, and number of elements in every 1D array represent the number of bank accounts of that customer. So wealth accumulated by customer 1 and customer 2 is the same. That is why output is 6. In the second example, however, the wealth accumulated by second customer is 10 units, and that is why second customer is the richest customer. So with that, now let's try to understand how does a 2D array look like? What does the dimensions mean in that? What is meant by m cross n? What is I and j values and all of that? So let's quickly do a whiteboarding and then we will write the code for this. So into the whiteboard, this is the 2D array that we have, okay? And as we have seen that m cross n matrix, it was said. So m cross n basically means the number of rows and columns. So this is a 3 cross 3 matrix, what I have written over here. So 3 cross 3 means 3 rows, 3 columns. And similarly, we can have any number of rows and any number of columns in a matrix. Okay, so this is a 2D array. Like we said that 2D arrays are basically multiple 1D arrays only, but stacked together. So this first line, if you see the first row, is basically a 2D array which consists of 2, 3, 4. Is basically a 1D array which is consisting of 2, 3, 4. Another second line, the second row is also another 1D array, 5, 9, 3. The last one is also another 1D array. So all of them are independent 1D arrays together. Now how about the dimensions? So there was also a mention of like accounts. The name of the matrix was accounts, and then I and j. So in case of 2D array, we have so far seen ARR and then the index, where I was the index, starting from 0 till whatever. In this case also, I and j denotes the row number and the column number. So in case of 2D array, how it works, since it is again 0 based, the first element, it starts like from 0. So here you can say this is row number 0, then row number 1, row number 2, 0, 0, and then the next element will have 0, 1. So here initially we can say 0, 0 means 0th row and 0th column. That is the first number. Then 0th row, the row number remains the constant, but the column has changed. So this is the first column. So 0, 1. Then it is 0, 2. So 0th rows only, but 2 columns, the second column. Again, since it is 0 based index, everything starts from 0. So when I say third column or fourth column or whatever, it's always is based on the 0 based index. Similarly, coming to the second line, this is row number 1 or the second row, but it will be something like row 1, but the column number is 0. Again, row 1, but the column number is 1. Row 1, but the column number is 2. This is how we are going to denote. And finally, we have row 2, column number 0, row 2, column number 1, and row 2, column number 2. So these are the dimensions which is denoted by this I and j value. So in the question, what it was given that every bank customer, so customer is denoted by this row. So 0th customer, then the first customer, second customer. So this number of customers is going to be denoted by how many rows are there. If m is equal to 5 means there are 5 customers, and n is going to be denoted by the number of columns. Like we said, number of columns is how many number of bank accounts. So that is the representation of the arrays that we are going to deal with. So now if we quickly discuss on the approach of solving this, like we said, this everything is denoted by the number of customer. So 0th row means the first customer, then 1 means the second customer, and so on. So what we will do is we'll do a traversal through this array. So in the traversal, what we will do, we'll use for loops. We will see how we are going to use. I'm going to show two approaches of using for loop. One the normal for loop and another will be the for each loop. So we'll simply do a traversal like we do a traversal for any 1D array. We are going to traverse to all the elements in the first 1D array and sum it up. So 2, 3 and 4 is basically 9. And then we are going to check whether 9 is greater than the max sum or not. If it is greater, we'll make sure that max sum is now storing 9. Then we'll add this up. So 12 plus 5, 17. So 17 is obviously greater than the max sum. So 9 will be now replaced by 17. Now the maximum sum is 17. Again coming to the third. So 11 plus 9, 20. So this last customer seems to be having the richest. Last customer seems to be the richest because his total wealth is 20 units. So now max sum will also be updated. And finally, we will return the max sum. This is the total wealth that we have to return anyway. So now we are going to see how do we write the code for this. Okay, so now we are going to start with the code changes. So first of all, we have written an integer. So let us initialize that. This is going to be like the max or the maybe the total. We can call this like the max wealth, and we can initialize this to integer dot min value. Next, as we told, like we are going to show write this code using two different approach. One using the normal for loop and another using the for each loop. So first of all, we'll use the normal for loop. So we are going to use two for loops. So first of all, the outer for loop, which is going to iterate through the number of rows. Now what is the number of rows? Like in this first example, there are two rows. This first row and then this is the second row. How do we know this? So we can say something like int row equal to 0. Then row less than this accounts array, this is the 2D array, dot length is going to give us the total number of rows. So if there are two rows, it is going to basically run from 0 and 1. Inside this, we are going to have another for loop. Now, once we are into the first row, what we have to do is we have to traverse through this 1D array. So for that, what we do is we do a column wise traversal. So let's say column equal to 0, then column less than the length of that 1D array. Now, how do we figure out the length of that 1D array? What we do something like accounts of row. So the accounts, this array's index number row, which is equal to 0. At the 0th row of the accounts 2D array, get me the size of that. So dot length. So this is going to give us the length of every 1D array at every row and column plus plus. So this is the structure of writing the two for loops when we are traversing or iterating through a 2D array. First, we iterate through the rows, and then inside every row we have to iterate through that 1D array, or we have to do a columnar traversal. So once we are into this, what we have to do is we have to do the calculation of the sum or the sum of the wealth. I'll just take another variable. So initially that can be set to 0, or rather it should be set to 0 in every at the beginning of this, because this is one customer. Row number 0 is customer number 1. When we go to the second customer, this value of sum should get reinitialized. So inside this second for loop, we just have to add it up. Sum plus equal to accounts and then row and column, wherever the row is and wherever the column is. So like we said in the whiteboarding, 00, 01, 02. So it is going to add it up for all the bank accounts of that particular customer. Outside of this for loop, now we are done with the addition of all the wealth units of that customer. Outside of this, we just have to do this small check that, okay, if the wealth, I mean the sum collected is greater than this, then initialize this to whatever the max wealth is. So we don't write if condition, we are going to just write max wealth is equal to math.max of max wealth and the sum, whichever is greater is going to be stored in over here. So in the first iteration, obviously 6 will be stored. In the second iteration also, this will not be updated. In the second example, first it will be 6. Then when it will come as 10 units, then 6 will be overwritten and max wealth will become 10 units. That's it. And finally, we have to just return the max wealth. This is the first approach of using the normal for loop. So let's try to run this. We'll submit also. Okay. Now we are going to change this the code a bit, because this looks a bit clumsy, a lot of for loops. Now we are going to use the enhanced for loop. So I'll just comment this piece of the code. Same logic, but now what we will do is, now we are going to use the logical wrapper around it. Means we are not going to write row equal to 0, column equal to 0, no. What we are doing, we are traversing through every 1D array, right? So how does a for each loop works? We don't mention any index values over there. We don't need any index values also in this case. Because we just have to add it up. So what we'll do, we are iterating through the 1D array, which we can denote by this int, then the array, and then we can say this is a, like a customer account among all the customer accounts. So each of this is like a customer account, right? Now we have got hold of this array itself. Within this, we can write another for each loop. Now we have to iterate through every bank account, or I can just rename this as like all the customers, and then every customer is going to have each of this is a separate bank account of every customer. So I can say iterate through every bank account of all the customers. Okay, why is it int? Because each of this is an integer value, whereas the entire 1D array, it's a 1D array. That is why it is a 1D array. Inside of this 1D array, we are iterating through every value of that array. So that is why we have written like this. Now it is just the same thing. So we just have to do the sum like we were doing it earlier. Sum plus equal to the bank account. I mean the wealth which is stored in the bank account. Right, and this check is also going to hold true again. Man.max of this and this. That's it. I think this code looks much more crisp, concise, easy to understand than the former one. Let's run this. Submit this. Okay, yeah, so that's all about this basic foundational question on the 2D arrays. Hope you guys have understood the question, and stay tuned for more questions on 2D arrays.